Hey everybody, welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Michael Noland. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Rolling Stones. What are the chances of their brand new album, Foreign Tongues, reaching the #1 spot on the charts? Well, it seems like it's pretty good. They have, as of midweek here, sold over 27,000 copies of their brand new album, Foreign Tongues, and it looks like they've got a great shot at hitting #1 in England, much as Paul McCartney did earlier this year. Of course, Paul McCartney also reached #1 on album physical sales here in the United States on Billboard, but failed to reach #1 on Billboard in total sales, instead reaching the #5 position. A wonderful position, especially when you consider how late it is in that man's career. And so the Rolling Stones are following suit. It looks like they may hit the #1 spot in Britain, and that always means good news as far as hitting the American Billboard charts. Which reminds me, their last album, Hackney Diamonds, only about 3 years old, also reached the #1 spot in England, as well as hitting the #3 position on Billboard charts afterwards. Can they do this one more time? And can they even begin to hope to hit the #1 position on the Billboard charts with Foreign Tongues? Now, that gets me to another thing that's being talked about. Mick Jagger just responded to charges that he's a bit of a power tripper. There have been those who have criticized him as always on the go and pushing the buttons for the Rolling Stones, and even saying that he's the one that keeps them in play these days. Now, there's no doubt that Mick has always been the one in the Rolling Stones to always take care of the details. As a matter of fact, one interviewer asked Keith Richards, after watching a 1962 video of Jagger just taking a look at every aspect of an upcoming televised show that the Stones were doing. When that interviewer asked Keith Richards, was that really what Mick Jagger was all about? Keith said, yeah, that's always been him, which doesn't sound unlike what a lot of people have said about Paul McCartney when the Beatles were still together. If it wasn't for Paul McCartney, the Beatles may have broken up even sooner than they did. He was always the man who kept track of all the details. And so they asked in a recent interview of Mick, do you see yourself as one of those power trippers, that everything has to go your way? And he said, well, early on, there was some truth to that, but I've always been that way. I always have to go to the wings and take a look at the crowd that we're going to play in front of. In other words, I need to know what the house looks like. He's a man of detail, he always has been, and you can't fault the man for that. But there is no doubt that Mick Jagger is the one Rolling Stones member that is keeping the hopes of fans alive these days. When he is questioned about whether the Stones will play shows to support this brand new album, it's usually him that says, I would like to see that happen sometime in 2027. And of course, he always is careful to mention what Keith Richards thinks about the whole idea and everything else. And even Keith Richards is now coming out in interviews saying that, yeah, there is a possibility that the Stones will promote this album, but if they do, he would like to see it done in a residency type of situation. Of course, we've seen Mick Jagger and Ron Wood in the past week do some live shows, and people have been questioning, where is Keith Richards? Well, Richards lives in the United States, and those shows were done over in England. So that explains that. It doesn't mean that Keith Richards isn't available to do future shows. He's just not willing to do the type of shows and tours that the Rolling Stones have done in the past. Now, you guys know what I think of this latest album. I think it's better than Hackney Diamonds. I think it is deserving to become #1 on Billboard charts. But I also thought Paul McCartney's album, The Boys of Dungeon Lane, was deserving of such an honor too. And to tell you the truth, I'm even more excited about Deep Purple's latest album, Splat. I would love to see that go great guns on Billboard's top charts. That would make 2026 a miracle year for me. But I want to hear it from you folks, okay? I need to hear, what do you guys think the chances are of the Rolling Stones' new album, Foreign Tongues, reaching the top 5 or better on the American Billboard charts? And do you think it's going to hit #1 in England? That would mean that both the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, as represented by one of their ex-members, Paul McCartney, hit #1 in England in the same year. When was the last time that happened, folks? And are you excited about this new album? Have you ordered it? Have you listened to it? If you haven't, do yourself a favor, because I'm going to tell you, Foreign Tongues is definitely one level better than the wonderful Hackney Diamonds. That's my opinion, but I want to hear your opinion. All right, folks, that's it for the video for today. I'll see you on my next video. If you enjoyed the video tonight, please give it a thumbs up. That always helps with views, and I'm not going to complain about that. And don't ever forget that you and I, we are the tribe.